Okay, welcome back to the channel. Today we're looking at the latest versions of the Pimax Play or Pimax Client, as it's called. And we're going to see what we can do and what we can't do. Well, I don't know how to demonstrate what we can't do except to say we can't do this yet. I don't have a YGig module, so I can't demonstrate that. And I'm not going to demonstrate a lot of things in games today. I'm just going to show you, if you're new to Pimax, how to access the client and how to use the various functions within it, he said pompously. So, without further ado, once again, he said pompously, let's fire up the Pimax client. You can run it as administrator. I find that with the most the most recent versions, I don't need to. Okay, let's see if it can find the crystal. Says it's disconnected. Give it a minute. Connecting. Device is connected. Beautiful. Sometimes it can take, if something's running in the background on your computer, it can take a minute or two. So I always give it at least 2 minutes before I go, time to check connections. But if it doesn't come up after a couple of minutes, chances are one of your USB connections is not good. That's presuming that it's worked for you in the past. Then all you have to do is just replug the USB connections, particularly if you're running the Pimax power bar, the USB bar that has extra power for the headset. I find that the USB connect link from that power bar to the computer doesn't like to stay connected. I think the newer versions of the power bar are better, but what I did was wrap some tape around the end of it and pull it snug into the power bar so that it can't disconnect. And I haven't had any problems with it since. All right, let's make this full screen. And we'll start on the left side. Oh, that's kind of cute up there, huh? Anyway, I think it shows the microphone's working. On the top left, we have the Pimax Store. There isn't a lot of stuff available here yet, but I'm hoping more will grow. And some of these are really, I think, designed for standalone mode. And there are some other games that you can access on the headset in standalone mode. Oh, excuse me, like I always say, this is getting old, you know, it ain't easy and it ain't for sissies. But my wife would say, what do you mean getting? You're already there, buddy. Anyway, these are games that you can download, purchase and download from Pimax itself. And it's a pretty good deal for developers because I think Pimax gives them quite a bit more, a bigger share of the revenue than any other game providing source. But I can't speak to that, so I don't want to commit Pimax to anything. Not that I am able to commit Pimax to anything. I don't work for them. I just use their products. Let's go to Assets. My Assets. This shows you which programs you are running through the Pimax Crystal. I have Arcade and I have Wandering in Space. That's a Pimax game. Or it's available on the Pimax Client. It's also available on Steam if you're interested. I have the usual suspects. I've got DOVR as a standard video player. VR chat, some of my colleagues in the beta test play VR chat a lot, and I tried it, but I think I'm too old and uncool. I just couldn't seem to get into it, get the hang of it. It all seemed to happen. I'm just not cool enough for it. I mean, I don't. That's the bottom line. Virtual desktop. The Crystal should do the virtual desktop really well, but I think the software for the desktop itself needs some updating to work better with the Crystal. IL2, Steam VR, yes, I can launch it from here. Flight Simulator, Wrench. Oh, I haven't even played this game yet. But it's a car building simulation, so it lets you be a mechanic and set up a car for racing and stuff. And it got good reviews on Steam, so I thought, whoa, gotta have that. I've been restoring a car for years and years. The last 1% seems to take most of the time. Exorcist is a horror game. I actually played a small role in this. In this game, I played a priest who's tracking down a demon, and I get killed. So all the player ever knows of me is what they hear on some audio cassettes I left behind to give them clues. It was fun. DCS I've got. It's funny it doesn't have an image, but DCS works great on the Pimax Crystal, especially now that we have dynamic foveated rendering and another thing called quad views available. Anyway, I'm not going to talk about specific sims and how to set them up. This is about using this piece of kit, the Pimax Client. Now, I'm not going to show you my account because I don't know how much information it'll put on the screen, and I don't think it'll put passwords and stuff up there. But anyway, that's your account information. It's private to you. And the wallet shows you how much money you've got in the Pimax Store. I have 0. Oh, excuse me. Oh, in case you're interested, I've never used this function, but it might be cool. I could try it. Settings. Let's click on that. You can see I have the version, the latest version of the Pimax Client, 1.18.01.01, and everything is pretty self-explanatory there. And if you go to Help, it'll give you the official website. You can click on that and get taken right to Pimax. Technical support, the official forum, feedback, and after-sales support from Amazon and from Pimax. Okay, good. And you're thinking to yourself, well, this doesn't look like the screen that we started with. No, it didn't. It doesn't. So to get back to that screen, we don't go to Store. We go down here to the crystal icon. I think that little thing is supposed to be the crystal headset. So let's click on that. And as you can see, that takes us back to our initial screen. And we can see we've got full battery power. I don't think the battery's a big issue on this machine anymore since they introduced the power bar. I can't remember the last time I changed the battery. I think if you play 5 or 6 hours in a row, you might have to change the battery. But I play 2-3 hours at a time, and I haven't changed this battery since 2023. Oh, we just turned the screen off to conserve power. Well, that's okay. We're not in VR right now. So let's take a look. This tells you whether your controllers are functioning. Well, I don't have mine. I mean, they're connected, and all I have to do is fire them up to get them recognized by the machine. But I don't use them very much. I don't play any flight simulators that require them. I tried a hang gliding simulation, but I just couldn't get it to work. I couldn't get the hang of it with these controllers. And I have the valve controllers too, and they didn't work with it really well either. But for most flight sims, I'd rather use my joystick and throttle and all that good stuff. I have base stations, but I'm not using them right now. You need a different faceplate for the crystal to use base stations. And if all you do are sims, racing sims and flying sims, I guarantee you don't need base stations. You really don't, because the inside tracking is pretty good. Very good for flight sims. What it can't do is keep track of things behind you the way base stations can. So if you put your hands behind your head or in a shooting game or something, you might lose them. I mean, not lose them permanently, but lose them in the game. On the other hand, I don't know how you've got your room set up. If you've got some kind of a guillotine behind you or something silly, yeah, okay, now I'm just being foolish. So let's go to room settings. You can click on this and set up your room. Just like that. I don't want to do that right now. Restart headset. Well, if you have a problem with the headset, you can try restarting it, and you can restart the service too to reconnect. And as I recall, it is also possible, if I think of it, to play without actually being connected to the internet, for standalone anyway. Shutdown, well, that's self-evident. It just shuts down the Pimax Client and the headset. Now, device settings, this is kind of interesting. When we click on this, it gives us a lot of information. It tells us the device we're using and its refresh rate. We're set at 90 hertz. The client, the crystal will run at 120 hertz quite comfortably. On my system, I prefer 90 hertz. Because sometimes when you do that frame doubling thing, I can double 45 frames per second, but I can't double 80, which is what I would, or is it 80? 80? No. 60 and 60 to get to 120? I guess that's it. I can't do math either. Most things run okay at 72 hertz. They run fine at 90 hertz. At 120 hertz, everything is groovy. But you do need a little more processing power than I have, both on the CPU and on the graphics card. I've got an old 9900 Intel, and it's not overclockable. And I have a 3090 graphics card, which of course was state-of-the-art a couple years ago. Eye tracking is turned on, auto IPD. Now this is cool. People say, well, what do you need that for? You can dial it in. Well, sure you can. But if you've got a friend over who's never done VR and you want them to play your flight simulator or your racing game or Beat Saber or whatever, it's nice if they can just put the headset on and it automatically adjusts for their eyes. Cool, right? Eye tracking, the first time you have to calibrate. This isn't a video about doing that, so I'm not going to show you how to do it. There are lots of videos on the internet that show you. The wearing location reminder. Well, that doesn't tell you that you need to be wearing this because you're in the play area, or you need to take it off because you're leaving the play area. This actually tells you where the headset is on your head, and are your eyes directly centered behind the optical center of the lenses. With these aspherical glass lenses, well, with any VR headset, it's important that your eyes be centered, but particularly so with these glass lenses. They're brilliant. There's no distortion. I don't see any chromatic aberration anywhere. But if my eyes aren't perfectly centered behind the optical center of the lenses, you will start to see some of those things. So the headset can tell if it's out of position, and it gives you an arrow. Move the headset up, move the headset down, move it left, move it right. Once you get used to it, you can kind of turn it off if you want, because you know where the headset should be. My IPD is quite narrow at 58. That's as low as this system can go. And on my 8KX, I had to do some software adjustments because my IPD was lower than the hardware could handle by itself. The 8KX, I think, would go from 62 IPD to 72 IPD, or 70. But at 58, I had to do some software adjustments. And you say, software adjustments? But gosh, old fat man in a cool world, how do I do that? Well, keep watching. In general, you can see we have the latest firmware, and if you want to check it, you can click on Update. And updating the software is not as scary as it was in the early days of Pimax. It's pretty much bulletproof now. The only time I had a problem, it just wouldn't complete the update, and I realized I didn't have enough disk space. When you make YouTube videos of flight sims and stuff, you can wind up with terabytes. Is that the word? Terabytes of video that you're never going to look at again. So every so often I have to go through it and cull all the videos and just leave the ones that I'm working on and put the others in storage or get rid of them. You can set up a lot of things here. You know, it'll do a diagnosis for you and so on, but it's only if you need technical support. Now let's click on Advanced. Now here's where we can do some software adjustments. If for some reason you find that your eyes, that it doesn't feel quite right, you can adjust some offset into your horizontal IPD by moving these. And all you have to do is just kind of click on them a little bit here. Just click on the edge of it. See, I moved it over to 0.9. Now, for me, it's perfect, so I just set it to default. But for you, you may find that you want to mess about with these a bit and see if you can get a little clearer image. Thing to remember, though, is it's tricky. There's no absolute system for doing this. It's kind of a hold your tongue just so, try it, check it, put it back, make another change, try it, make another change until you're happy. It took me a couple of days really to get to the 8KX to where I was happy with the offsets. But remember this also, your eyes do adapt. A lot of the time when you first start using a headset, and this is my third, the first few days you use it, you think, oh boy, I don't know if I can do this. And then your eyes adapt. Your brain and your eyes get together and say, oh, this is what we have to do. And they make it so. There are limits to adaptation, and that's why you have IPD adjustment and offsets. Okay, so what else do we have here? Well, we've got local dimming turned on to highlight. Sometimes when I'm doing a night flight, I'll put it on extreme just because the cities look so darn good with all the lights on in Flight Sim. Automatic active play area. Well, my play area is so small it's basically the chair I'm sitting in, because I do all my gameplay in my recording studio, and basically it's tiny. No room to stand up and jump around, even if I was young and fit enough to do that. Video see-through mode has been enabled. Now, this isn't a pass-through mode that gives you part of the screen to show you the world around you while you're playing. I wish it was, but it's still pretty useful. If you tap the front of the screen of your headset twice, it goes into this mode and it shows you a pretty low-res picture of what's in front of you. And you can go, oh, okay, where's my joystick? Oh, there it is. Or where's my controller? You can turn it on, pick up your controller, and turn it off, which is pretty cool, right? Okay, so there's one last thing we haven't checked here, and that's games. This is another way to set up your games and start them. You can start them, remember, from My Assets, but it's probably better to start them from here because you can change the settings for each game. For instance, let's say I want to play Flight Simulator. Now, I've got render quality set to custom, and I've got it set to 1.06. I don't know why. I don't know what the maximum is I could run. I could try 1.25. It used to be that you went in increments. You'd do 0.75, 1, 1.25, 2. But now they've got it set up so you can move it around and move it up in tenths, which is pretty cool, right? Tenths and hundredths. Anyway, I'm going to set mine to 1.10. Dynamic foveated rendering, I'm setting to balanced. I suppose I could set it to aggressive. It's a little bit different when you're using DCS. There are things you have to do differently, and you have to use Matt's OpenXR toolkit and the Pimax runtime. The OpenXR toolkit is pretty cool, but this is and once you start it, you just leave it. You don't have to leave it open. You can shut it down, and the settings will remain. Pimax XR runtime is what you need to do OpenXR on the Pimax. So you'll need this program too. Now, if you don't have it, you can use Steam XR. But again, that would be another video to show you how to get into Steam XR. It's a setting within Steam itself. Okay, at this point in a classroom, I'd be saying, oh boy, I've overwhelmed them. I probably have. So feel free to leave questions below the video if you want. Now I'm just going to start Flight Simulator. From here, I'm going to leave all these settings where they are. I'm happy with them. I'm going to apply them. We'll start the video, start the game, and that's where this video ends. Thanks very much. And I hope you'll come back to see where the next video starts, with me actually flying something. Hopefully in the not too distant future. I've been remiss in making videos lately. I'm going to try and make more. Anyway, thanks for coming along. I hope you enjoyed the video, and I hope it's useful.